Your tasks in this circle. Does it have to do with your individual personal preferences for your lifestyle choices or values?
No.
Can I hear that no really loud, everybody?
No.
Thank you. It does my heart good to hear you say no so loudly, even though I ask you to. Yeah, it's not about, but I will not allow us to have a barbecue because I'm a vegan.
No, but what I'm saying is that's just in reference to like an individual would bring that up.
That's right, an individual person with their tasks in this circle.
Right.
Who they know about the tasks that they're doing. Because we probably apportion different tasks to different ones of us. Because remember what we do in our circle? We do work. We do operations meetings where we deal with the details and coordinating of the work. And then we do these policy meetings. So thank you. Thank you. I wonder if you would open your handout booklet to page 25, where we're looking at reasoned objections and arguments. Oh, and somebody's going to tell me the time. Okay, thank you. Look at! I got a big giant message from you. Brains is a lot of fun to work with, don't you think? Okay, so what does reasoned mean? Would somebody please check out that first sentence and tell us loudly? Somebody?
Understandable and reasonable.
Right. And argument. Does argument mean conflict and fighting?
No.
It's like mathematical argument, meaning logical, reasonable, follows from data that we all agree on. It's the logically following, and we can understand what the person is saying. What if we can't understand what the person is saying? What if we can't understand what the person is saying? What do we do? Am I putting you on the spot?
You ask them to clarify it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And what if they can't quite clarify it? What do we do?
Help them.
Help them. Thank you, Anna. How might we help them?
Making suggestions. I mean, that's the whole feedback loop.
Mm-hmm.
Improving the language.
Mm-hmm. Asking them questions. Do you mean da-da-da-da? No. Do you mean da-da-da-da? No. Do you mean da-da-da-da-da-da? Yeah, that's what I mean. Sometimes people don't know how to say with words the thing they can feel. And it really helps to ask them questions, but not questions like this. Like, and I'm annoyed with you because I don't know what the heck you're talking about yet. No, questions like this. Do you mean, because you have to feel that they care, that they like you, that they've got goodwill going on, and then that really helps the person go in and get it. When I say blah, 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 and somebody says, I don't know what you mean, if they ask me things, I can access what's in there that was kind of invisible to me a minute before. Do you know what I mean? Have you experienced that? So, let's say a person objects because they've got a vague feeling somewhere, somehow, that something isn't right here, but they don't know why. Can they say objection?
Sure.
Yeah, they can. They can. But they're not going to give a reasoned, argued objection right then until we help them. And we might have to spend some time and energy, which hopefully we have enough time in our agenda, to courteously and with empathy and goodwill ask them, does it have to do with our finances? Nope. Does it have to do with our reputation in the whole community or the wider community? Does it involve our reputation as a community with our neighbors? Nah. Does it have to do with using up too much of our labor time? It takes too much energy to do this? Maybe. We're getting closer. See, you're helping draw the person out. Listen, what do you think? Does it sometimes happen that a person has a feeling, but it actually isn't related to our aim? It actually isn't related to what we hope to do here. It's related to some inner emotional issue that they have that they might not know they have, or they do know they have, but they just don't know that this is related to it. Could that also happen?
Absolutely, yeah.
Have we seen that happen? Or so we think that's what... So we've probably seen both, right? a person gets a vague intuition feeling that they express verbally before they know what the logical reasons for it are. A person gets a vague feeling and it really isn't related to what we're doing. Or they're viewing what we're doing through a lens of some kind of emotional distress. And then a fear comes up or something comes up and they don't really know it's their personal thing. They think it has to do with the aims of our circle. We've probably seen this if we've been in consensus groups. Has anybody seen what looks like this? I have. Yeah, okay, I see some people. Now I want to ask our two folks who are used to majority rule voting, do you think that comes up in those circumstances? And I truly don't know the answer, so I'm asking. What do you think, Alex?
Say it again. What does it come up?
Do you see people, when you're modifying the proposal in your majority rule voting situation, do you see what looks like personal issues that somebody might have that seems like it's personal to them and their emotional inner life rather than having to do with the actual issue?
Yes, but very rarely.
Yes, but rarely? Okay, thank you. What about you, Anna?
No, I'm sorry, I was reading the things.
Oh, good. I want you to read these things. In your work in groups making decisions, have you seen somebody have a concern or wait, I'm not sure I want us to do that. That doesn't seem to be based on anything that has to do with what we're doing, but seems like their stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that comes up for people in all groups.
I think so, too.
Decision-making,
Yeah.
people's own internal
Right.
voice that they don't intend to be heard is coming out through the language and what they're writing.
I think so. And you know, it looks the same on the surface, doesn't it? Sometimes we can't tell which it is. Have you observed that? So what do we do, since we're looking for kindness and fairness, equivalence, transparency, and effectiveness? Let's say it's not a time-sensitive proposal. That is, we're considering it in today's policy meeting, but we know we can set a date for another policy meeting. And there's only 5 of us, so we only have to coordinate 5 people's schedules. Or we can wait until our next scheduled policy meeting. It's not a time-sensitive proposal. What can we do to find out in a cooperative, collaborative way with our friends sitting in that circle whether this is one of those intuitions that we want to go help them and us know what it's based on, that's a reasoned, argued objection, and or whether it's a personal preference based on an inner something.
Work with them on it, hold space for them, and with time and care to help walk them through their process. Just like you were saying, ask questions, help them really get to their concern. And if the whole group agrees, like, hey, our time's up for this meeting, we still haven't gotten quite what your objection is, is the group okay with putting this proposal off to decide on it until next meeting because it's not as time sensitive?
Yes, that's what we can do. And we can assign one or more of us to visit with that person in our circle between now and that other meeting to see that after they've slept on it, they have a day or two with which for more insight to bubble up, that maybe we can help draw it out of them. It's not time sensitive, therefore we're attempting to be helpful to them and to our group.
What if it is something that is personal? For example, there's a new infrastructure with the infrastructure grounds committee, and they want to put in a new soccer field in a place where before that it was right outside of your house, and it was like full of wildlife. And like the whole community has decided they want to make more spaces for activity, and they just decided to put it in front of your space. And you have really strong feelings this is really going to impact your life in a huge way, to the point where maybe you don't even want to live there anymore, and it feels like you do have a lot of like personal, vested, strong emotional feelings about this proposal that's about to go through.
Well, you're bringing up a third instance. The first instance is, this is something completely reasonable. It's within the realm of the aims of our circle. It's within our domain, And in a little bit, after being courteously, empathetically connected with and asked questions, we are able to articulate what it is. Or in our next meeting, we're able to articulate what it is. Okay? That's one thing. Here's another thing. It's a personal, emotional issue that I'm not in touch with. I'm not aware that I'm doing this, but I'm projecting onto our group a thing. Or I'm projecting onto this proposal a thing that isn't really rational, logical, or reasonable. It's not within our domain, or it's not within our aims. It's just my personal fear issue thing, or my personal anger issue thing. I don't even know, because I'm not all that in touch with it. That's a second issue. The third one is, it's neither of those, but it's right outside my house, and I'm emotional about losing my view and my connection to wildlife because I'm going to have soccer balls flying around an open field. That's a third kind of thing, isn't it? Okay, if it's an intentional community, my input would have been received before we decide where to locate the soccer field, if we have any knowledge of how to do community at all. But let's say we're brand new and we're kind of clueless. Well, I, as the person who lived in that house, would need to let people know that this is having a huge impact on me. Does that make sense?
Yes, but what if there's no other solution?
Regarding which of the three things?
Well, land might not be available. That might be the only logical place to put it, or that might be the only.
There's no more land where we could put the soccer field. Or there's no. Okay.
So unfortunately,
everybody.
Yeah, we're not pleasing everyone, and let us say that is designated community land. And let us say when I joined the community, I knew that I was joining a community with that area and these areas there and there and there is dedicated to the whole group land that we could all decide to use for anything. And I just got used to it being, a beautiful view outside my window and being a place that I thought of as my personal place that I could go walking in the beautiful dappled forest and birdsong and everything. And now I'm emotionally upset that I'm about to lose, quote, my, unquote, personal next-door forest.
well, there's ways to mitigate it, though, I'm sure. And soccer isn't 24/7.
And what?
Soccer games would not be played every day, every night, at all hours. I mean,
It's true.
There could be a negotiation about time.
Sure, there could and there would be, of course. And if we were in a community with that situation, we, the community, would need to remind the person that they joined us. We didn't join them. They joined all the agreements we'd already made when I joined, and that was one of the agreements. And that I was given in my community handout and in my orientation a map of where was designated we might use it someday community land. And what if I said, well, then I'm going to leave the community? Then we would say, please change your mind, but if you do leave, please come back and visit.
And if that person is sitting on that committee where they happen to be making that decision, that circle where they have to be making that decision, and they come around and they test for the consensus.
Do you mean, wait, hold on. We're not testing for consensus if we're using sociocracy. Are you speaking of using consensus?
Yes, I misspoke.
Or are you speaking of...
Oh,
you're,
you go around and,
we are using sociocracy.
yes.
Okay.
You go around the rounds and you look for objections, and that person is still objecting. The facilitator can dismiss their objection because we already know, we've already been through it, we've already talked with them, we've already held space for them, we've already come to the conclusion that their objection is personal and emotionally based, and the community's needs trump their needs. Then at that point, the facilitator can say, I'm sorry, Sally, that this is hurtful for you, and we're going to move forward with this.
Well, there's two ways to look at that. And I wonder if Lauren has anything she'd like to say in addressing this. And I'll save my comments for later because Lauren might say what I'm about to say anyway. How do you see that, Lauren?
Yeah. So I feel like the ideal situation is that the person who has the beef with the soccer field says, I really don't like this. It's going to be a big issue for me. I need to resolve it. But it's not conflicting with the aims of our circle. My objection doesn't have to do with these things. So I'm going to take other recourse for this you guys can move along.
And then I, as the facilitator, would say, well, Sally, do you withdraw your objection then?
Right. So they would be they would be able to, in my ideal community world, we are able to have our personal objections and understand that they may be different than governance decisions. If I wasn't able to come to that place myself, so then my group, yes, would ask clarifying questions to try to get me to articulate what the governance thing was. If I can't get there, then it can either be put off, or the facilitator can say, since we can't link it to the governance of the circle, then we're going to have to move on from that objection. My guess would be, in this particular case, this is why having the representation in other circles matters so much, is that if there was a major conflict with quality of life, that would come up in another circle. And that's why you have the general circle, to protect those other domains as well. Like, wait a minute, recreation or kids or whatever circle is building a soccer field. That's great. We want you to look out for our kids and our recreation. But we have this other circle whose aims is to create really high quality of life for all of our residents and protect natural spaces. So we have a conflict here, so we're going to have to work that out in a way that feels good enough for both groups. So that would be one recourse for those sorts of conflicts, is that they are, that's why you have the voices from the different circles that come together, so that they can speak up on behalf of those overlapping places.
If somebody has a domain, like a circle has a domain, and they're not checking with the other circles on every proposal they pass, and so they're like, we decided to put a soccer field here, and the next thing you know, they're out there with their bulldozers, and then...
Wait. Can I say wait, please? I don't want you to forget what you were going to say, Molly. We have to clarify something huge. This is not part of sociocracy. What I'm saying is part of community. So please remember that my other life, my other personality, of the many that live in here, is teaches folks how to start successful new communities based on what I've learned from those that did it and those who didn't do it. Okay? So we would have designated what you might call land use planning. And we may have already designated that place specifically and totally and solely for community use, which may be decided at some point in the future, right? If so, what Lauren just said doesn't apply, because it's already designated for that. We just have to remind the person of that. But if we don't have any such designation, then everything Lauren said does apply. Does apply. Because if there's no designation, then we really do have differences of values, differences of interests and needs between the kids and recreation circle that might make a soccer field, and they decided we're going to put it there, and the quality of life for all of our members circle, or whatever we're calling it, who might want to make sure none of us is having an awful time in our group. So let's look at circles for a minute. Here we are. Let's say this is our kids and recreation circle, which will probably be out here. Let's say that we were like Pioneer Valley, and we had a big circle called community life, and we had kids and recreation, and we had quality of life, or something like that. We would all go to the general circle and try to work it out, because what does the general circle do? Overview, big picture coordinating, and so on between all of us. But let's say that we did have, did or didn't have a designation of our land use planning. The Sociocracy doesn't have anything to say about land use planning in a land-based intentional community. But I have loads to say about it, because I know about this stuff. Okay, so one of the things that I saw Gina, a Sociocracy trainer from Australia, do, and we met in Brazil, is that we were doing a simulation, and somebody kept objecting because they thought it wasn't safe enough to try. So Gina said, can you show how it connects to one of these? So just take your time and look at them, and then tell us which one it connects to. Well, the person couldn't. First of all, this was just an exercise, and they were just learning sociocracy. But let's say this was real life. So imagine it is. It's a situation that you have suggested. And so none of this says, I'm going to lose quality of my life. This one here says, I won't be able to do my tasks in this workshop. In this circle. But that's a different thing than the quality of my life, looking out my window, going out into my personal forest that I now feel personally connected to. Okay. So then Gina said, and I'm going to pretend I'm her, can you show how it connects to one of these? Or is it a personal preference? And the person was really going to have to say it's a personal preference in our scenario here. And then the facilitator or one of us or several of us in the circle would need to say, and I'm hoping, gently and courteously and with goodwill, well, you see, we can't really consider that a valid objection because it doesn't really connect to one of these things, and it doesn't really connect to our aims, which we've got projected on the wall from Google Docs or maybe on the wall so that we know what they are, and we can always, the facilitator can always go, given that these are our aims, and given that it doesn't connect to one of these things, would you say, I'm going to pretend it's you, Anna, that it's more of a personal preference?
Yes.
And so then we'll say, well, do you then withdraw your objection?
No.
All right.
Well, I'm just saying people
No,
act like that.
No. See, no, Anna is pushing the envelope on being a devil's advocate, which of course we want in here. Okay. So now let's say that the person said no. So what Gina did and what the facilitator would probably do is several times with a lot of goodwill and kindness in their hearts, which might take acting if you're getting exasperated, would say, once again, may I ask how it connects to our aims and to one of these? Can you point to which one? And please don't point to one and twist it into meaning it has to do with the forest next door to you, because we got to move on.
Without distortion,
Yeah.
I'm trying to understand this. So, potential unintended consequences of implementing proposals. So this is a new proposal.
It'll have the unintended consequence of my yard.
Well,
Relative to the aim of our circle, Sally?
relative to the aim of
Our kids of our quality of life circle? No, wait. No, we're the kids in recreation circle.
so, well, no, I guess it would, the
Is it more of a personal preference about how you love to enjoy the forest next to your house?
Yes.
Well, now that you realize it's a personal preference, would you be willing to withdraw your objection?
Regrettably, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it could go that way, right?
Hopefully.
But let's take if it's time sensitive, and we do not have time to wait until the next meeting after various of us visit Sally and try to help her understand. I suggest disallowing the objection if we've got to move on, not because we put pressure on ourselves, but because there's an outside reason. Jerry Koch-Gonzalez, I have to be fair to sociocracy trainers everywhere who have different viewpoints, suggests that we go ahead and let the objection, which cannot be resolved, cause us to not make any decision, but that we do go ahead and propose to ourselves that we remove Sally from the circle. Now, I also suggest that for me it's a last resort, and for Jerry it's a last resort. But what I would stick in there is that we can disallow the objection if it is personal preference and the person won't withdraw it because they can't get it even though all of us do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is because I have seen self-focused, uncooperative, ungetting-it behaviors in communities. And I would like to protect us against that. Jerry's way of protecting us against that is similar but different. He wouldn't disallow it. He would allow it, and we have to just stop there, and we don't move forward. We talked to Sally outside the meeting, asked her if she would be willing to withdraw her objection. She's not willing to withdraw it because she feels so emotionally connected to that forest. And then we know it's a personal preference. She knows that it is, but she's not withdrawing it. Next meeting or in an emergency meeting that we call, which she comes to or doesn't, but probably she does. She's certainly welcome to. She's invited to. What we do is we propose that we remove Sally from the circle for 6 months or for 8 months or for 4 months, and we get her more sociocracy training. And her condition for returning is she got more training. Why? So that she can discern better in the future the difference between a personal preference and something connected to aims. What if she will not and cannot get it, she will not and cannot take that additional training, then she doesn't come back to the circle. Who decides this? We in the circle. Does she have a voice in that decision? No. But we're going to get to that tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, I'll just say it almost is. We spent a lot of time talking about worst case scenarios, and the part of both community and governance and communication that probably is the hardest for all of us, which is when there is messy territory to get into. And in some ways that's great, because that's what we're doing when we're vetting a system, is when it comes to these edge areas, can it still hold its worth? So that's great. But I wouldn't want it to take away from the fact that the reason we adopt something like sociocracy is because it generally works so well. And I think it's not uncommon when we talk about negotiating for different needs to think that negotiation is combative. I think sociocracy gives us a chance to see that what we're actually doing is getting to a thing that works for everybody. The attitude can be very positive. It can be this people's objections are a new chance to figure out how to get to that sweet spot that means everybody's needs are met. Operates under the assumption that there is going to be a spot where everybody's needs are met because you guys all did the transformative work of altering your lives so that you could be in a position to have to worry about governance in an intentional community for the good of the world in the first place. So just don't forget that piece, even though this is really important, and I want to tip my hat to everybody who is willing to get through that really kind of murky territory of considering some of our worst tendencies when it comes to negotiating, because they do come out and they do come up in community because we share so much. But I just don't want to forget that this whole objections process can also be really fun, and it changes our attitudes, gets us into the habit of being like, how can we get through this together? We're going to find a way.